Welcome back to another episode of The Honest Texan. I am your host, Josh, and it's been a while since I've done a video, but I've been pretty busy with work. Again, I am a journalist. I love what I do, so I do a lot of different kind of traveling, and I talk to a lot of people, and I have a lot of articles to write. So even to this day, I think I have maybe 10 or so articles. Yeah, 10 or so articles that are I'm on deadline for. So I'm gonna probably work on those today. But this is the more recent September 30th Texas governor debate, gubernatorial debate, Texas governor debate, and this is between Greg Abbott, current Texas governor, and between Francis Beto O'Rourke, the candidate to become the next Texas governor, who's a Democrat. Greg Abbott is a Republican. So Greg Abbott has been in office for 8 years. He's been in there for a while. So we're going to see how this debate goes. I'm going to let this debate run through. I'm not going to let this debate just run through like that. I'm probably going to just do some commentary in between or something, just whatever. So bear with me, folks. It's been a while since I've done this, so yeah. Let's just do this here.
Share their vision for the state of Texas. Asking the questions tonight are panelists. From KSAT in San Antonio, anchor Steve Spriester. My colleague at KXAN, anchor Sally Hernandez. And from the Dallas Morning News, political
and Next Star is
candidates. Let's briefly go.
Next Star is the company that is doing all this. They have multiple TV stations in the state of Texas, and by all rights, I've heard that they're a pretty good company. So I would think that this is not a biased debate or anything like that. But like I said, they're a pretty good company.
Go over the rules for tonight. Each candidate will have 60 seconds for each question. If there are follow-ups, candidates will then have 30 seconds, and there will be up to 30 seconds allowed at the end of the...
I will say this. As the current debate rules stand, I don't like how they have it set up. I believe that you should allow each candidate to answer each question fully, because you want the public to be fully involved. You want the public to be fully informed. And I don't like how the fact that you have to cram in all of these things into 60 seconds or 30 seconds for follow-up or for rebuttal or closing statements. I know 30 seconds can be a long time, but it also can be a very short time, especially when you're doing these kind of things where the public really wants to know what are each candidate going to do for them, for the state. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Debate, each candidate will have 30 seconds for closing statements, and when your time is up, you're going to hear this bell. And with that, let's get started. I'm going to send it over to my colleague Sally with the first question.
Britt, thank you. And again, thank you both for being here tonight. I can tell it's going to be an exciting night.
I'm just going to say this. Next Star, I might have to apply to them. They got some really beautiful women that work for them. And you say that sex all day long, but it's the truth. They do have beautiful women that you can see that works for them. And they're very highly intelligent. So, it could be intimidating to some guys, but not me. A beautiful, highly intelligent woman, I'm okay with that.
I got a lot of questions to ask you both, but I just want to remind you, please pay attention to the time cues.
I might cut that out.
This way, you're not talking over each other, and I don't have to interrupt you, and our viewers at home can hear your answers tonight. Let's get to it. Immigration. Immigration issues are especially relevant here in the Rio Grande Valley. For years, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has ranked it as the #1 area for migrants crossing illegally along the entire southwestern border. Many communities here have suffered enormous monetary costs. Governor Abbott, let's start with you, and you have 60 seconds with this question. What would you do to alleviate the financial burden placed on these communities?
We've been working to respond to the disaster caused by the Biden administration that has caused such an economic burden on these communities. Farms and ranches are run over, communities are disrupted, homes that are invaded. Remember this, just 2 years ago, we had one of the safest borders in decades, but under the Biden administration, we have more people coming across the border than ever in the history of our country. Texas has responded by making sure that we have the National Guard and DPS deployed, where they're making arrests and turning back illegal immigrants, as well as what we're doing to help local communities by busing them from the area where Border Patrol is dropping them off to sanctuary cities in northeastern parts of the country. But what we're doing is making sure that we are keeping our community safe, and this is completely different than the way things would be under Beto, because he said months ago, there is no problem on the border. He said that he would reduce immigration enforcement. He even said that 95% of the people come across the border illegally, he would allow to stay.
Okay, Mr.
I'm just gonna say this. He answered the question, and what you want to see out of a lot of these politicians is if they actually answer the question, or if they deflect. So right there, the governor actually answered the question. So let's see what Rourke, the Irish guy, is going to do.
Rourke, I want to give you a chance to respond. And let me just repeat the question first for our viewers and for you. What would you do to alleviate the financial burden placed on border communities related to migrants crossing over? 60 seconds, please.
What we just heard from the governor is what we are likely to hear over the course of this debate. He's going to blame people like President Biden. He's going to try to lie about my record, and he's going to destroy.
Does this sound like deflection, or that he's actually answering the question?
Back from his failures, whether it's his failure to keep the lights on in the grid, his failure to address school shootings, or his failure in immigration. We are 8 years into his time as governor, and this is what we have on our border. In fact, $4 billion into Operation Lone Star. We're seeing not fewer, but more encounters at our border right now. What we need is a safe, legal, orderly path for anyone who wants to come here to work, to join family, or to seek asylum. If you come to this country, we expect you to follow the law. But on our side, we're going to make sure that our laws reflect our values and our interests. And I'm going to work with local leaders, Republicans and Democrats alike, to make sure that we have a Texas-based guest worker program to alleviate shortages that we have in our state for labor demands and reduce inflation and address supply chain issues as well.
Thank you. Governor Abbott, you just heard your opponent talk about Operation Lone Star, and I have a follow-up question about that. About $4 billion in state funds has been directed to the Operation Lone Star Border Security Initiative. The program has seen its funding increase as recently as this past July. So the question, Governor, and 30 seconds if you can to answer this, should more money be allocated towards Operation Lone Star? And if so, Governor, how much?
Well, candidly, we shouldn't have to allocate any money for it, because this is all because of Joe Biden's failure to do the president's job to secure the border. We're only having to do that because of Joe Biden's failure, and because it would be the same pathway that Beto would take us down. Speaking of which, he talked about this guest worker program. He could have done that had he won the race for the Senate or won the race for president. That's not a job for governor. The job of governor is have to deal with the chaos caused by the Biden administration and its open border policies that Beto would replicate.
What we have is chaos.
I mean, did he answer the question? My personal thoughts is that he did. And then he went into Beto and the Biden administration. But again, when you look at these debates, whether it be, state, local, federal, or not federal, but national, look to see if these politicians are actually answering the question and not just deflecting. So, yeah, keep that in mind.
Thanks to Governor Abbott right now.
Okay, let me give you 15 seconds to answer the question for me. How much money should be going toward Operation Lone Star?
And I'm telling you, $0 should be going to Operation Lone Star, and that's what it would be if we had a president who was enforcing the immigration laws of the United States of America.
Mr. Rourke, I want to go over to you 30 seconds for this question.
Yeah, because our laws are messed up.
Should more money be allocated towards Operation Lone Star?
No, it's clearly failed. The numbers are in. We're seeing not...
Well, you see that? They both agreed. That's good. It shows something. At least both candidates can agree on something.
Fewer but more engagements at our border. When the governor spent $4 billion of our tax dollars on what has turned out to be political theater for his political career.
Well, I spoke too soon.
He promised us that it would deter people from coming to this country. We've only seen more people come. Now they get a bus ride to Chicago or Washington, D.C. or New York. We don't need any more stunts. We need solutions. We need those coming here to follow our laws. We need to make sure our laws follow our
Thank
values.
you,
Sally, can I
Mr.
respond
Ward.
to that, please?
I'll give you 15 seconds, Governor.
Sure. So these are efforts to protect our state. There is a record amount of fentanyl coming across the border. This deadly. Texas law enforcement has seized enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in the entire country. And this is because of Joe Biden's
Thank you,
policies.
Governor Abbott. I assure you we have a lot of questions, a lot of topics to get to, and Steve has the next one.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you, gentlemen, for both being here tonight. Mr. Rourke, I want to continue with the immigration topic now. You've criticized the deployment of National Guard troops to the border. Here's a clip of you speaking at a March rally in College Station.
Ah, damn it. Well, you know, Cardi is actually a good place.
Our Guard members from Texas A&M who are on the border right now in Zapata and Webb and Hidalgo counties to go be part of a solution in search of a problem.
A solution in search of a problem. More recently, you told the Houston Chronicle that you will put some troops on the border as governor. In 60 seconds, can you explain why your view on deploying troops has seemingly changed when it comes to the border?
It hasn't. I've actually been to Zapata and Webb and to Maverick counties and listened to these members of the Guard who had less than a week to say goodbye to their families and to their careers and into their communities to be part of the governor's political theater. Those aren't my words. Those are their words.
Man, there's... no.
So far, we've lost the lives of 8 Guard members. 4 of them have taken their lives, and 4 of them have died in questionable circumstances, none of whom, by the way, was killed by anybody coming in to this country. These Guard members say they have no powers to arrest or detain anybody. 10,000 Guard members, $4 billion, and it's been a complete failure, much as everything that the governor has done has been a failure for this state.
I'm just going to say this. The border, what people fail to realize, the border is a extremely huge, massive land area, you know, going across from, that is across from Mexico. And there are a lot of gaps in the border. So, and then on top of that, you have all the tunnels that were also built underneath the Texas border, California border, New Mexico, all that kind of thing. And in Arizona. So it is the federal government's job. It is the government's job to secure the border, first and foremost. Because Texas is a part of the Union. Texas is a part of the United States. And as that is, then it is the United States government's job to protect the United States borders. So really, yeah, Border Patrol, again, that's federal, but they need more help down there, or up there, whatever you want to call it. They need more help at the border, period. You know, so yeah, troops on the border. I mean, I'm not opposed to having troops on the border. I'm really not. I would prefer that they would be American troops, or you have, like you said, you have the National Guard on the border and everything like that, but let them do their job. Let them actually do the job and detain people, send people back, do whatever, document everything so you know who's coming in, so you know what criminals are coming in. But that doesn't seem to be happening. So, again, yeah, here's this debate.
We need are solutions, not more stunts. Where we can have a strategic deployment on a voluntary basis for Guard members, let's do that. I've been consistent on that. Where we can partner with local sheriffs, with DPS troopers, let's do that. But we need to work on things like a Texas-based guest worker program to meet labor needs in our communities and ensure that our...
He said Texas-based guest worker program to meet labor needs. I mean, we already have a bunch of people in Texas as it is. Labor needs is really not an issue. I mean, because there are all kind of places that are hiring. Just you got to get people to work, and people are not going to work especially these days when inflation is at an all-time high, people are not going to work for $7, $8, $9, $10 an hour. Hell, not even $15 an hour. You're going to have, if you want a person to actually live in this state, because everything has gone up, and everything has gone up because due to inflation, due to a bunch of people moving here. You got people from California, from New York. You got people from all over the country that have been moving to Texas and Florida, Arizona, and I think maybe New Mexico, but don't quote me on that one. But you have a lot of people that are moving to the state of Texas and Florida from all these different states, mainly New York and mainly California, especially California moving to Texas. And it causes a lot of stress on the Texas infrastructure. So, I mean, like I said, we have a lot of people here, but you also have to have people, people have to be able to live. So we have to figure out how to do a cost of living adjustment to keep up with inflation. And that's what needs to be done.
Laws match our values.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke. Governor, I want to talk to you. You talked about migrants and the busing of migrants. Many migrant...
I'm not going to lie to you on that one. When I first heard that Texas would be shipping or busing migrants to these sanctuary cities, that was funny to me. That was just too funny because it's comedic, because these cities are really nowhere near the border, but they declared themselves as a sanctuary city. I think California is a sanctuary state, so they're on the border, and that's understandable for them. But places like New York City, who is classified as a sanctuary city, that is hilarious to me because they're nowhere near the Mexican border. And the fact that you have Texas, both the governor and mayor of El Paso, who is a Democrat, by the way, are busing migrants all the way to New York City, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, I find extremely funny. Now, it is sad that these migrants are being used as political pawns. That is the sad part, because these are humans. These are human beings. These are children and everything like that. I wouldn't mind it. Like, help the people, help the children, especially. Children definitely, because it's not the children's fault. And the children don't know. So definitely help the children. But the adults, if those are their kids, then yes, allow them to stay here with their kids, of course. But they have instances where it's not their kid; they're just using the kid as a means to get in. So there are those kind of circumstances that has happened. But yeah, the border definitely needs to be addressed. And right now, the Biden administration seems to have an open border policy.
Advocates and Democratic elected officials have expressed concerns about the treatment of migrants being bused from Texas to other states and cities. Here's New York Mayor Eric Adams talking about that just last week.
And when we reached out to Governor Abbott and stated, can we coordinate? Can we
look like a giant milk dud with some shades on?
Identify, who's traveling here, that we don't have to guess this, they refuse to do so.
The White House has called this a political stunt. Governor Abbott, is this a political stunt? And has there been coordination with the states and cities these migrants are being taken to? And if not, why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think without a doubt, this is just my opinion, I think without a doubt this is a political stunt. But I think that this is a brilliant political stunt. Because, one, you have the Florida governor, you have the Texas governor, and I'm not sure, it might be Arizona or New Mexico. I'm not entirely sure on that last one. But you got both of these governors sending illegal migrants to these sanctuary cities, to Kamala Harris resident, to Martha's Vineyard. And again, I'm going to say this about Martha's Vineyard. Bunch of rich people, right, who say they want to help. But what did they do immediately when those migrants got there? They shipped them off somewhere else. Even though they had the resources, even though they had the space, even though they had the jobs, all of these things where they actually could have helped the migrants, what did they do? they shipped them all off to, I think it's an Air Force base or some Army base, some military installation. And they got them up out of there real quick, and they raised a bunch of money for it, but it didn't go to none of the immigrants, it didn't go to none of the migrants. It went straight back into Martha's Vineyard's residents' pockets, which, yeah. So, again, look at people's actions. Don't just look at their words. Look at their actions. See what they're doing. The actions of Martha's Vineyard residents who say, oh, yeah, we love immigrants and all that. You know, we want them to be safe. We want them to be here. But we're going to ship you over there so we can get out your hair. So, you know, you cannot be by us. That's what they did. It's a fact. Look it up.
So this operation began after a meeting with local officials, sheriffs, mayors, police chiefs, and county judges, where they were overrun with the number of migrants that Border Patrol had dumped into their tiny little communities. They needed relief, and busing was one of the ways of providing them relief, and thus began the process of busing the migrants to cities that self-identified as sanctuary cities. Mayor Adams has never called my office, never talked to anybody in my administration, and so what he's saying is just flat out false. There has been communication between non-governmental organizations in Texas as well as the ultimate location, whether it be Washington, D.C. or New York. But going back to what Beto said, what you showed on video earlier was what happens throughout this entire campaign, where Beto continues to flip-flop on issue after issue after issue. He's flip-flopped on the border issue. He's flip-flopped on the energy issue, such as energy jobs and the Green New Deal. He's flip-flopped on defunding the police. Whether there's one issue or another, he keeps changing positions.
I want to be clear, though. You say that Mayor Adams has never called your office.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Rourke, I want to follow up on this. You've called the busing of migrants a political stunt as well. Why shouldn't sanctuary cities share the burden of what's happening on the Texas border? You have 30 seconds.
Look, I live on the border. No one cares more about the security and safety of the border than those who are raising our children there. I also serve as a city council member there. And in my time working with law enforcement, working with state and federal partners, we were able to help make El Paso, Texas, one of the safest cities in the United States of America. It's because we were looking at solutions instead of these stunts. I just want to remind everyone, this guy's been governor for 8 years.
Answer the question, dude. Damn.
And this is where we are today. Some of the worst levels of engagement encounters, fentanyl trafficking, and human smuggling that we've seen. That's the result of stunts instead of solutions.
Stick to the time, please. Thank you.
Steve, I got to respond to what he just said.
Absolutely. I'll give you 15 seconds.
He mentioned El Paso. The fact of the matter is the El Paso mayor, a Democrat, the El Paso City Council, Democrats, they are now busing more people than the state of Texas is busing. And he's not calling them out for them busing people to other regions.
Different program. It is apples to oranges.
He says it's a completely different program, but they're both sending both the Texas governor and the mayor of El Paso are both busing immigrants or migrants to these sanctuary cities. Yeah.
I'll tell you, this hateful rhetoric, this treating human beings as political pawns, talking about invasions of Texans defending themselves, that's how people get killed at the Walmart in El Paso.
And again, he's bringing up. I want y'all to understand something. He just brought up the shooting in Walmart at the El Paso Walmart. That has nothing to do with this at all. What he's trying. This is just what I think. What he's trying to do is tug at the heartstrings of what people's, because everybody feels bad. Everybody felt that day, and for El Paso, what happened at that dang Walmart, just like Uvalde. So you have to look at these politicians, and whether it be Greg Abbott, whether it be Beto, whether it be any of these people, whether it be Judge Clay Jenkins, whether it be anybody, any politician, look at how they try to use certain things to try to, one, deflect from the actual question, from answering the question. Two, to try to tug at your heartstrings and get you, oh, well, yeah, that is true. You know, this did happen. I'm so sad. And Abbott's not doing it. So look at both candidates and look at and how they say things. That's what you really have to pay attention to. You really have to pay attention to the words, the language that they use. Words matter. Language matter. Listen to what they're saying.
gentleman in Hudspeth that we just learned about yesterday, this is incredibly dangerous for Texas and is not reflective of our values.
Okay, Governor, I want to give you 30 seconds to respond to those charges.
Sure. I mean, it's clear that Beto just wants to perpetuate the open border policies and mischaracterize exactly what's going on. He refuses to acknowledge that the city of El Paso, because they are so overwhelmed by Joe Biden's open border policies, they too are having to bus migrants out of their communities because they have no way of keeping them there. That's what we're trying to do to help our local communities and make sure that we are going to lighten the load.
No one is for open borders, not the least of us who actually live on the borders. This is the kind of stunt that you get from Greg Abbott. We need solutions right now.
I want to go to a follow-up for you, Governor Abbott,
Sure.
and it's on the busing question. These migrants are being sent to states and cities with Democratic leadership. Why aren't these migrants being sent to so-called sanctuary cities in Republican-led states?
Good question. Let's see how he answers.
It's like New Orleans or Metro Atlanta. You have 30 seconds.
So again, because these cities of New York and Washington, D.C. and Chicago are so large and have the infrastructure that's available, that they have the capability of accommodating the number of migrants that are being sent better than these other cities that you talked about. There will be other cities in the future that also will be on the receiving end of migrants, because we will continue to have to move migrants because Joe Biden continues to allow more illegal immigrants to come into the state of Texas.
Hear that?
Thank you, Governor.
Rewind it back. He answered the question.
Has the next question.
Thank you, Steve, and hello, gentlemen. Good to see you both.
You too, Roman.
Let's pivot now to the topic of gun control. Following the Uvalde massacre, many community members made this one specific plea. Here's one student who survived the shooting at Robb Elementary.
Before you renew Amazon, watch this. Look, I love Amazon Prime. Free 2-day shipping is...
You have to be 21 to buy a case of beer, but an 18-year-old bought a gun to kill kids. That does not make sense.
See, this is what I don't like right here. This is what I don't like about politics. One, you don't put a child in adult situations, because one, this child does not know, doesn't have that knowledge, and hasn't developed the brain functions, or hasn't developed that to where she understands everything that she's saying. But again, they're using whoever's doing that, whoever put that child in there, they're using that child also as a political pawn, also as a political heartstring to tug on people's hearts about the whole gun debate, gun control issue. So you have to look at that as well. But no adult should be putting children in these adult situations, especially in politics or anything like that. So I'm completely against that, for one. But let's move on.
To be clear, that's a call to raise the age limit to buy an AR-15 style weapon from 18 to 21.
Now, I wasn't on board with that at first, to raise the age limit from 18 to 21. However, and what changed my mind about this was that we have 18-year-olds, in some cases back then 17-year-olds, and I think maybe 16-year-olds at one point, join the military, fight and die in the military. 17, 18-year-olds who have fully automatic weapons, who operate planes that drop bombs, who build bombs, who does all these things. And that's what kind of changed my mind on, okay, leave it at 18, because, yeah, I mean, if we can have 18-year-olds fight and die for us and die for this country and serve this country, then no, the same 18-year-olds should be able to buy firearms, should be able to buy rifles, in my opinion. There's already a background process where you go through and this is in my earlier videos, you can go back and look at it. Heck, I might even try to figure out how to put a link in the description box that alludes to all that. But there's already background checks, FBI background checks. You go buy a gun legally, right? You go buy a gun legally, you have to go through an FBI database. I forget what it was called, but you have to go through the FBI database. They run your background check. Sometimes they might not get back to you for a few days. And it also depends on what state you're in. But I know in the state of Texas, you can buy a gun that day, go get your background ran, and if you come back clear, if you don't come back as, a felon or anything like that, then you will be able to get your gun. But you cannot predict human behavior, and that's the issue. You cannot predict human behavior, and no matter how we try to be like Tom Cruise in Minority Report, you cannot predict human behavior at all. No one could predict what Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland high school shooter in Florida, was going to do. No one could predict what the Columbine shooters were going to do. No one can predict what human behavior can do. It's just not what we can't do it that way. And yeah, so that I can go on a whole rant about the gun laws and why I don't think guns should be banned and all that kind of stuff and the age limit. But here, let me listen to these two people answers and remember what Beto or Rourke said. They're gonna put that in there.
A Republican governor in Florida broke with the NRA to sign this into law after the Parkland mass shooting. Governor Abbott, you say this can't be done in Texas. Mr. O'Rourke, you say it will be done if you're elected. Can you please explain your positions? Let's start with you, Governor Abbott. You have 60 seconds.
First, there's no reason why a little girl like that should ever have to say anything like that. There's a reason why these parents are angry, and they're rightfully angry. And I can feel their pain. No parent should lose a child, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that does not happen. We want to end school shootings, but we cannot do that by making false promises. It's a false promise to suggest that we can pass a law that will be upheld.
You want to end school shootings? I don't know if that's possible, but I think if some changes that should be made, in my opinion, hire veterans that are still there in the head, that are cognitive of everything that is around them, that they can still serve their country, serve their local and state. So, I mean, I would hire veterans, hire more police, hire security, hire armed security, not just security guards. And you have to make it a strong presence around these schools, because these shooters know that these schools are gun-free zones. And you never see a shooter go into a place where people are actually carrying guns, because they ain't trying to get shot. So you don't see that happening. But you will see them going to a Walmart. You will see them going to a school. You've seen them going to schools multiple times, because guns are not allowed at schools. So hire more police officers, or in this sense, put more security on the ground. Of course, update the security cameras. Teach the teachers, teach the educators more how to be resilient, and about weapons, about firearms, about what to do. Be honest with the kids about everything. I mean, it's terrible that you kind of have to do this, but in this day and age, evil is pretty much everywhere. I mean, evil is everywhere, and it's ruthless, and it doesn't often come into the form that you think it comes into. So, just like I said, that's just what I think.
Held by the Constitution to raise the age, and here's why. The most recent Federal Court of Appeals decision on this particular issue said that it was unconstitutional for a state to raise the age from 18 to 21 for a person to buy an AR-15. So any attempt to try to raise the age is going to be met with it being overturned. So we need to get to the bottom of what is really ailing our communities, and that is the mental health that is leading people to engage in school shootings. And Texas is already addressing that.
He said something extremely important that I haven't seen a politician or heard a politician say. He addressed mental health. There is a crap ton of mental health issues in the community, in the United States, that need to be addressed. We see it every day. people know that there are mental health issues going on in the United States. And in Texas, there's a lot of mental health issues that are going on. But again, you have to vote on these issues and raise these issues to your local federal politicians so it can be addressed. And a lot of times, if you talk to somebody or something, then that helps a lot. If someone is having a terrible mental episode, all they might need to do is talk to somebody, right? Mental health has to be addressed. It has to be.
Just a quick follow-up, Governor. Take 15 seconds to answer this. You're a former Attorney General. You've never shied away from a legal fight. Are you against this proposal because you feel like it's unconstitutional, or you believe that it's unnecessary? You personally believe that it's unnecessary?
Purely from a legal position, based upon what that Court of Appeals decision ruled, and importantly, based upon what the Supreme Court decision said in a June opinion that changed the way that Parkland case was determined. I know how the Parkland case was determined. Florida is going to have its law overturned because of this new Supreme Court decision.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, in 60 seconds, can you please explain your position on raising the age limit to purchase AR-15 style weapons?
First of all, I'm going to follow the lead of those families from Uvalde. That's who I'm doing this for. In fact, many of them drove more than 5 hours, 280 miles to be here today, even though they're not allowed in this theater.
Answer the question. See, it's politicians like this. I don't like these kind of politicians. These kind of politicians he has not yet answered the question, but instead, what he's doing is posturing. What he's doing is deflecting.
Because of the governor's conditions, because they want to hold him accountable, because it's been 18 weeks since their kids have been killed, and not a thing has changed in this state to make it any less likely that any other child will meet the same fate. All we need is action, and the only person standing in our way is the governor of the state of Texas. In Florida, after the Parkland shootings, it was 23 days for that Republican governor to raise the age. And in those states where
Okay, you want action. You want immediate action. Fine. I get that. We all do. But let's say you raise the age limit, right? That's getting a gun legally. What are you going to do about the people that get guns illegally off the street? How are you going to stop them? I'm just wondering. How are you going to stop illegal guns from getting in the hands of these people, these kind of people? That's a question that I want people to answer, that I want these politicians to answer. Yeah, you can raise the age limit. You can, stifle the American people all day long, legally. But how do you stop the illegal guns?
the age has been raised, mass shootings are down 80%. So yes, we can raise the age to 21. And as governor, I'll bring Republicans and Democrats around the table to do that. After all of these mass shootings, this governor has done nothing except make it easier for people who should not have a firearm to carry them publicly, and this is what we get as a result.
That is not entirely true. The law that he signed allowed people who are who do not have a felony, who do not have a criminal background, to carry a gun or own a gun in a lot easier settings. These are law-abiding citizens that we know of, but again, you cannot predict human behavior. But it is a fact that a felon in the state of Texas cannot buy a gun legally. So a lot of these guys, a lot of these people are getting guns illegally if they have the guns, because they're not buying them legally. So I don't know what the heck he's talking there, but again, this is what happens when you don't know jack squat about guns.
Result, we need change.